There is one trope I'm especially tired of seeing in movies or TV series, and that would be the mad scientist. It's been done to death and gives science a bad name. That's why I was a bit anxious when Viktor appeared on screen. He just screamed fall arc and shady mad scientist. I was sure that by the end I'd be hearing his maniacal laughter. Especially after he mentioned that he has ambitions. Oh boy, I thought I knew where this was gonna go. But once again, I was wrong. Instead of going down that well-trodden path, the writers of Arcane used this overused trope to their advantage with Viktor's character. However, Viktor would not work as well as he does as a standalone. In Arcane, he is complemented not only by Jayce, but also Heimerdinger and Singed. And it's no coincidence that there are 4 scientists among the more important characters in Arcane. Viktor, Jayce, Heimerdinger, and Singed don't only teach us a valuable lesson about science, but also about conflict. About four-corner opposition to be more specific. But what is four-corner opposition, and what does it have to do with conflict and Arcane? Any good work of fiction makes use of conflict, but not every conflict is equally entertaining. For that, conflict needs to be meaningful, and to be meaningful, conflict needs to be rooted in opposing values. Whenever the characters can't agree on a specific value, there is room for conflict. And if the conflict is connected to that value, there will automatically be a central theme connecting the action arising from that conflict. Four-corner opposition takes 4 characters with different views on such a value or subject. However, they shouldn't just oppose at random, but instead be connected and therefore make the conflict meaningful. Let me show you what I mean with the scientists in Arcane. Our 4 opposing characters are Jayce, Viktor, Heimerdinger, and Singed. These characters oppose thematically through opposing views or approaches, for example, and dramatically through opposing goals. The 2 thematic oppositions I found were to improve and to maintain, which are 2 opposing approaches. Jayce and Viktor both want progress and to improve, while Heimerdinger and Singed both wish to maintain. Jayce wants to improve people's lives by making magic a reality through science/hextech. Viktor wants this progress too, but not only for altruistic purposes. He wants to achieve something. He is quite ill and knows that he probably won't get to live a long life. Being confronted with death like that, it is relatable that he thinks about what he's going to leave behind. Still, he is not in it just for fame. This shows when he's not bitter that Jayce gets all the attention for their work. Sure, he does love the approval, but he doesn't need to be in the spotlight to enjoy it. Just knowing that his research has left an impact is enough for him. That's something I loved about him. They could have easily made him a vain, villainous scientist, but he isn't. Even though Viktor and Jayce share a motive, they are very different. While Viktor was working night shifts on their project, Jayce hit the gym to get these babies. But in all honesty, portraying the 2 characters like that was intentional and simply meant to highlight their differences. Jayce has a stunning build and seems quite healthy. He also comes from a good family background and spent most of his life in Piltover. Meanwhile, Viktor grew up in the polluted environment of Zaun and was born with poor health. Despite these differences, they found a common goal with Hextech. And because of their differences, they complement each other well as a team. But it also puts their different views on things in perspective, and why it's sometimes hard for them to understand each other. Also, putting Viktor next to Heimerdinger was great. As you can see in this 4-corner opposition model I made, Viktor is farthest away from Heimerdinger. And they are even more different from each other than Jayce and Viktor. Heimerdinger is centuries old and will live on for who knows how much longer. Meanwhile, Viktor has not only the limited time a human gets, but even among humans he drew the short straw. So, while Viktor desperately wants to leave his mark and therefore needs to make the most of the time he has left, Heimerdinger is already a famous scientist and still has lots of time to accomplish even more. He has everything Viktor wants, success and time. But what Heimerdinger shares with Viktor is that he too is scared. But unlike Viktor, he's not scared of dying without being recognized. No, Heimerdinger is scared of Jayce's and Viktor's progress, because it reminds him of a time in the past when things went wrong. And he doesn't want to go there again. At least not as fast as Viktor and Jayce want to get there. For someone like Heimerdinger, who's granted such a long time to live, a fast pace isn't necessary and may seem much scarier. But for Viktor, going slow is not an option, because he just doesn't have that much time left. And to make things even more complicated, they might be able to cure Viktor's disease by continuing their research. So when Heimerdinger tells them to shut down their lab, he basically tells Viktor to die. Coming from someone who gets to live on for centuries, that's awfully condescending. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about his former assistant, but he always puts the many before the few. And I love how the show didn't end with Heimerdinger or Jayce and Viktor being right. Heimerdinger had to realize that hindering progress because he was scared of something that might happen in the future has led to all sorts of atrocious things in the present. Meanwhile, Jayce and Viktor both ended up hurting others because they wanted to walk at a pace they couldn't keep up with in the end. Or, as Viktor put it, in the pursuit of great, we failed to do good. But you may have noticed we haven't talked about Singed yet. He was the hardest to put into this model. Maintain was an easy label to put on Heimerdinger, but on Singed? Didn't he develop Shimmer and kick the plot into gear with it just as much as Jayce did with Hextech? Well, yes. But think about why he developed Shimmer and what he uses it for. For one, he wants to keep the mutation alive. Also, he saves Jinx from certain death. And in the end, it is even teased that he may be trying to revive someone. And Singed is not the only one who uses Shimmer to maintain. Vendor used Shimmer on the brink of death to stay alive long enough to save Vi's life. And as for why Singed developed Shimmer, he seems to have lost someone dear to him, so that might be the reason for his fixation on keeping things alive that should be dead. But yeah, he maintains life by whatever means necessary. And that also gives him another connection to Viktor, aside from just being his mentor. Viktor obviously doesn't want to die. He still wants to accomplish lots of things. At the end of season 1, it looks like Viktor overcame his fear of death. However, I don't think things will stay like that, and it'd actually be boring if they did. Even though I'm really sick of the mad scientist trope, his character already goes far beyond that. So I wouldn't even be that mad if he got a fall arc. Though I'd love to see him do good and therefore achieve greatness. That would be a much more satisfying conclusion for his character than the fall arc. But let's see. So looking at this four-corner opposition model, it seems like I couldn't stop talking about Viktor. And in fact, when it comes to the scientist in Arcane, Viktor is the main character, because he has the strongest connections to all the other 3 scientists. But as I mentioned before, he doesn't hog the spotlight, which is why at first sight it feels more like Jayce was the main character. And in regards to other parts of the plot, Jayce probably is, but when it comes to the theme of science, Viktor is the clear protagonist, and one of my favorite characters. I'm really excited where the story will take him next. I hope they manage to keep up this insane quality of writing and won't get high on all the praise about the show. I assume in season 2 we'll get to see more of Singed, since his character wasn't nearly explored to his full potential yet. Also, his stance on the value of science hasn't really been covered either. So I do have an idea where they might take his character in season 2. But I don't want to speculate, since Arcane has already proven my predictions wrong twice. But I'd love to hear what you think about the role Singed might play in season 2. And before you start arguing that I forgot about Jinx and Echo, I didn't include them in this video because I would see them more as tinkerers and engineers. Their characters mirror each other perfectly, and it makes their conflict one of their own, which was executed beautifully, by the way. But in my opinion, they just didn't fall into that same category as the other 4. So that was my take on the scientists in Arcane. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to get notified once I post a new video. And thank you so much for watching this one. Anyway, farewell.